Have you ever had a near-death experience? Or perhaps someone you know may have had a near-death experience? Well, if so, we would love to hear your story and have you as a guest on our podcast. For more information, visit NDE.world. Again, that's NDE.world. We would love to hear your story.
Welcome to the NDE World Podcast, where we explore the magical, mystical, and spiritual world of near-death experiences. And now, Ashton Lewis and Daphne Lynn.
Welcome back to the NDE World Podcast. I am your host, Ashton Lewis, and my lovely co-host, Miss Daphne Lynn. Hello, Daphne. How are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Figure we do another, some actual NDE reviews. That's kind of like our specialty here. We like to analyze different experiences and break down the elements and things like that. And also, any of you guys out there that's had any kind of out-of-body experience or any kind of spiritual experience or an NDE, be sure to go to our website, nde.world, and contact us. We'd love to have you on the show, and we'll be glad to share your story with others. We'd love to hear your story. Love to hear your story.
Most definitely. We got some stories coming up very soon that I'm really looking forward to, the interviews on those. It is just amazing stories, and it's so amazing that each one of them are so different. They're so different in each one of them. There's no two alike.
They are. There's nothing, and there's basic elements, and that's what we're doing right now, breaking all this stuff down. But there's so much more to it than just on the surface. And speaking of the surface, for those of you out there who are just coming aboard and really learning a lot about the NDE or the near-death experience. Basically, it's broken down into a lot of different elements. The near-death experience is, the actual
overall
something that happened to someone. That's the actual experience. However, the OBE or the out-of-body experience is where it gets really mystical, magical, very symbolic, very euphoric, very blissful, very otherworldly. It's pretty deep stuff. It really is. So some of the basic elements would be the actual, like we said, the out-of-body experience.
Yeah, and the out-of-body experience is, not everyone has the out-of-body experience where they see themselves, whatever condition, where they are, looking down upon themselves.
Right. Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So that's the out-of-body experience. But the NDE is what the overall experience is.
Correct.
Yeah, so
the main element
amazing.
that starts it off would be the OBE. You got your out-of-body experience, typically, and you got your, meeting other beings. You've got your life reviews. You've got your, the tunnel. You've got your light. You've got your telepathic communication. These are all elements of an NDE.
Right, and that's the pleasant side. On the distressing side, you have the void, the feeling of emptiness, total darkness, screeching sounds, and just different
even the
horrific,
hellish.
Horrific things, and then the hellish one as well.
Yeah. The part that, you may not understand what's going on within the actual NDE. That could be distressing.
Right. I've read that even some of the pleasurable ones have been what that person deems distressing. Just some of the elements in there, even though it was a blissful event or a blissful happening to them, when they came back, it was distressful. Certain things or aspects of that experience.
Because you are your own judge.
Yes, exactly.
And these only have specific meanings to the individual. I mean, we can sit and analyze them all day, but they're really going to have a meaning to that person. All we're doing is just breaking down the elements so people would understand, what these elements are within these experiences.
Most definitely. And I've read even that with some of the distressing ones. There was one account that this lady came back. She told her experience, and it was horrific. But she said it was the best experience that ever happened to her because it changed. She had to change something in her life.
That's right.
So,
And that's also I'm glad you brought that up as another part of these near-death experiences. Not just the actual experience itself, but the coming back into the body, the returning, but also the experience overall. What did you learn? Like, what was the life lesson? Did you bring did you bring anything back that could change your life? 'Cause these are life-changing experiences for the most part.
exactly, yeah. And that's the beauty of it, because whether you're a believer or a non-believer in quote unquote God Almighty, either way, it's going to give you, that source is going to give you what you need to make your adjustments in your life.
That's right.
To believe, if you don't believe, in a higher power. And then those that do believe, a lot of times there's no religion on the other side. It's all about love. So,
Oh yeah, there is no religion.
There's lessons in all of these experiences, and I love listening to them because of that. I can take away something from every single one of these. But I'm open to it. I have to take what resonates with me. If it doesn't resonate with me, I'll just let it go. I don't judge it. I just let it go. But if it does resonate, I take it and apply it in my life.
Absolutely. And these are just experiences. These are near-death experiences. You can take it as giving it meaning if it means something that goes on into the afterlife. Yeah, I'd like to believe that myself. And there's a lot of doctors and things like that really believe that this is a part of the afterlife. But what I'm actually getting just from different people, from the NDEers and the OBEers and the channelers and the all these people that's going back and forth and talking about that afterlife or the astral world, the astral plane, and the and getting your vibrations to the right vibration to go over and carry over into that next world. It's a whole different experience now, learning a lot of this than it was growing up in the in the Baptist religion or in the church world.
This kind of talk was, even talking about it was shame. You would bring shame on yourself and be condemned by the church.
Oh yeah,
and others around you, even your family members.
Heresy, you're a heretic.
You're going to go to hell. You're not supposed to be doing that. So this is very controversial. But it's not really. You just have to open your mind to it and just say, hey, this is not dogmatic like religions teach it is.
This is not religion.
Exactly,
by no means.
it's not.
It has nothing to do with religion. This is the beauty of this. Is what I like about it. It hits any age. Okay.
Yes.
Male, female, any nationality. Any background, any cultural background, anything. It's not. Whereas religion divides. It divides countries. It divides people. It divides individuals. It divides families. So these NDEs, what I love about them, these experiences that we're having, is that people are having these experiences all over the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all of us are going to have to transition. You can't get away from dying or what we call dying or death. But I do recommend to not be so afraid of death, and don't give it that kind of horrific. Scary meaning like this is it. Oh my God, I don't want to go. No, welcome it. You want to welcome it and be in the right mode and know that hey, you're going to keep on going. And I believe that now, and I'm understanding it more now. But you've got to get them vibes, get the vibes going the best that you can now.
Right. Mentioning the Tibetan Book of the Dead in a previous episode, that actually breaks down how to make your adjustments in the death process.
Yep.
And knowing that, I heard from a family member of mine that was there when another family member passed away. And she said that the person who was passing away saw her father greeting her as she was passing.
Yeah.
So she was in that state of not being afraid of what was happening. She was accepting it, and that greeting process was there.
Yeah.
And that's part of the lessons in the Tibetan Book of the Dead is, you do have your greeters that come for you.
And you want to go in it with a really good peaceful mode.
Yeah.
And I know that when a lot of those guys get to a certain age, and death is inevitable, they actually start studying, say like the Book of the Dead, just like people study the Bible or whatever. But that way they prepare themselves for the afterlife.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
they go
definitely.
into these altered states, and they can prepare themselves. They control their consciousness. They control that
Exactly.
already. So that way, when they transition, when death comes, it's just you're blinking your eye and you're going. There's nothing freaking out, because as long as you're controlling that spirit, you're controlling that body, that's going to affect where you're going to go and how things are going to be resulting in that, other side.
The next phase, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just, it just went through my mind as you was saying all that about this process, and the book, Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. When I was in religion, I knew of these books, and I said, there is no way I will even pick that book up and read that. But that was that dogma of religion.
Indoctrination.
The indoctrination, yeah, that I wouldn't even pick the book up. And it's a learning process. It helps you to transition. So it's an educational book that we can benefit from.
From what I'm understanding, and the Ascended Masters and all these greats from way back know that death is just a transition. And
Exactly.
they actually taught you how to live and how to die, believe it or not. But now you take our modern times, most people have demonized death and say, oh God, it's horrific, or we're losing them, or they're dead, they're gone, and we never see them again, and boo-hoo, and we're conditioned over here that's death is it, that's it, But if you can understand that things go on, and you don't want to be sending no negative vibes when somebody
Life
passes
exists.
on. You want to laugh and send them that love and that joy. That's going to keep them going.
Yes.
Okay?
And there's several masters who have taught, do not mourn for the dead, because they're not really dead. They just transitioned from this realm. So we don't need to mourn over those that we've lost.
No, not at all. And you want to understand
You're going to go
that.
through a grief period, of course, because we're not having the physical of them here. But you have beautiful memories, I'm sure, with all these
and
people.
you'll hook up again. That's the
Exactly.
thing, 'cause-
Life continues.
Yeah, that's the beauty of all this. And once you understand that, death is not to be feared. Don't fear death. And when you lose somebody, don't fear that you'll never see them again, or that's it.
Right.
But life goes on. It keeps on going. You're going to be living forever and ever and ever and ever.
Right.
You are consciousness. You are life. You are source. You are what we call God. You are alive, experiencing life right now.
Yeah. A spiritual being is in a physical form.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of all these NDEs. So these people break away from the physical and go over into that spiritual. And that's the beauty of the actual NDE. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and, since we're about where we're at with our timing, we're going to go ahead and listen to our clip of the day and take some notes and see what we can come up with. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All right, well, let's do it. You ready?
Ready.
All righty, and we are rolling.
I was an ROTC cadet who went through U.S. Army ROTC basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I graduated high school, and within a few weeks was sent to the ROTC basic training intake for that year. Training progressed fairly normally, until the third week or so. At that point, I had contracted a serious case of pneumonia. I was unable to get out of my rack one morning. I was weak, feverish, and delirious. I was coughing and bringing up pink foam. Since I missed formation, the drill sergeant came in to see what was going on. He called for a medic. Once the medic assessed me, I was sent to the base hospital via ambulance and admitted. I spent 3 nights in the base hospital, with daily x-rays to assess how my treatment was going. I do remember 4 fluids being pushed, but I have no recollection of specific antibiotics, or drugs administered. I do remember the last morning I was there. I was being pushed in a wheelchair to get an x-ray. The radiological tech looked at the film and noted both lungs involved. I remember looking at the film and thinking it looked like a bunch of nodes in my lungs that were connected by faint lines. Even with both lungs involved, I was released back into my unit. Even though I was still very ill, I managed to graduate training with my class. After the training was done, I flew back home for a few weeks, prior to the fall intake at school at the Military Institute. Since I was still pretty sick, I drove to the school 2 weeks prior to the start of classes. The trip took its toll on me. When I arrived after a couple of days of driving, I was again getting a high fever, and coughing pink sputum. After getting assigned to my room and talking to my TAC officer, within a couple of days I was checked into the school hospital/infirmary. It's a small facility, maybe 10 or 15 beds. I was examined, admitted, and put into a room and bed. I was hooked up to N4, since I had severe diarrhea and dehydration. After the doctor visited, I was started on antibiotics, along with Lomotil, containing atropine. I found out that I am hypersensitive to atropine. I went to the infirmary in the morning. It was afternoon before I was put on the 4 and given antibiotics and oral Lomotil. I was resting and went to sleep. I'm not clear on how long I was sleeping, but when I woke up it was nighttime. There was only a single nurse on staff. I realized that something was very wrong. My heart was racing, my mouth was extremely dry, and I had serious vertigo. I've never felt that way before, or since. I really felt like I was in serious trouble and possibly dying. I tried contacting the nurse's station via the call button, at least that's my recollection. I didn't get any response. I think I tried yelling for help, but again, my recollection is somewhat foggy from that entire event. After getting no response, I managed to roll myself out of the bed and hit the floor. I crawled out of the room towards the front of the infirmary. I knew there was a nurse's station there and I could get help. I dragged the 4 stand along with me and went on hands and knees to the station. I remember kneeling in front of the counter and getting a hand on top of the counter. I was trying to haul myself up. I watched the nurse run around the counter and got me back on the floor. I think she asked me what was wrong, but I'm not clear on what she was saying. I remember she left me and ran around the station. A bit later, she came back with a male nurse or attendant. He then went to get a gurney and with another man, they lifted me onto the gurney. They wheeled me into a room at the front of the facility. I remember it was across from the nurse's station, and had a large window that faced the station. I was becoming extremely weak and fading in and out of consciousness. I think they were hooking me up to another 4, but that's the last I remember while lying on the gurney. At some point, I regained a sort of consciousness, but I had a completely different viewpoint. I was watching this activity, looking down from a point apparently below the ceiling. My viewpoint was maybe 3 feet behind my left shoulder, and above my body. I had a very good field of view, no tunnel vision, and I could see the entire room. I saw myself lying on the gurney. One of the male attendants was performing CPR on me, while the other male attendant was bagging me. The female nurse was leaving the room. A person wearing a blue jacket came into the room and seemed to take charge, while CPR continued being done. The feeling I had at that time was extreme calm. I felt no fear whatsoever. I felt mild curiosity as to what was going on. I remember thinking that this isn't so bad, if this is death. I'm not clear how long I was in that state, but I felt no urgency. I felt like an observer, with little attachment to what was happening below me. I still had a sense of self, though. I was still me, just not attached to the world. I had no sense that there were any others in the room, other than myself and the people working on me. I saw no bright light, no tunnel, etc. I woke up and found myself back on the gurney. I had an N4 and monitor attached. The person in the blue jacket was in the room. I assume he was the doctor. The female nurse was also there. I can't recall if it was the same nurse, however. The person in the blue jacket explained to me that I had a serious reaction to a medication, probably the Lomotil. He told me I was lucky to be alive. He thought it was an allergic reaction, but later I was told it was probably a hypersensitive reaction. From my recollection, I spent about 5 more days in the infirmary before being released. I was still feeling terribly weak. The cough was still very active and I made the decision that I would pass on this school year. I talked to the TAC officer and school administration, got released for the year, drove home and recovered over the next 6 months or so. I went back to the Military Institute in 1981, attended for a year and a half, decided due to some other factors that this wasn't for me, and dropped out.
And we are back. Any comments, Miss Daphne?
Yes, most definitely. One thing that I noticed was the feeling of that he was dying, and that is something we see in a lot of these experiencers, is that sense of knowing. It's very common, and he had that feeling that he was dying.
Yeah.
And then it goes into an actual OBE. He senses, he doesn't have a life review or anything like that. His is just a out of body experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Different viewpoint from below the ceiling.
Yes, exactly. It was like 3 feet behind him and up above him. So, and over to his left. I've noticed it's different for each individual which side they are connected to. But he said he was calm and there was no fear. So that's always something that you see in these experiences as well, is that peaceful calm, no fear, with the pleasant ones, that is.
Absolutely. Now, to go with your comment there, this is the part that really pushes a bit beyond the just hallucinations going on in a person's head. Are they just having these things? Is it something medically explained? They try to I don't want to say debate, but you try to share stuff with them. They want to debate about it. That there's always an explanation, but a lot of this touches into the spiritual. But here's my point: the OBE, the out of body experience. Look at some of the actual visual things here. Once this person went over into the out of body experience and had that different viewpoint, like you said, he had saw 2 male attendants. He had saw a female attendant. And had mentioned a couple times about the person in a blue jacket.
Right.
So you're actually seeing these things. You're seeing these, so that's what's really cool. That's how it's not something just going on in your head, because you're actually coming out of the body. So there is some kind of conscious awareness that's seeing other things.
Common sense tells you, your eyes are closed, you're not coherent to anything. You wouldn't be able to say, okay, this person was doing this person was doing that, there was the color of this jacket or the color of the floor, whatever the case may be. There is that awareness, that consciousness of things going on in the room or their surroundings.
I like this point right here. It says that he felt like an observer, but at the same time with a sense of self.
Right, yes.
So that kind of reminds me of like the, say like, for example, like the life reviews or something. A lot of times you're the actual observer and then still the self, and because you feel everything that's going on with yourself and the others as well.
Right, and his comment too, he's, that if this is death, it wasn't so bad. So,
No.
I didn't say that the exactly way he did. I didn't quote it word for word, but, that if this is death, hey, this isn't so bad. So there was that lack of fear that's programmed into us from religions and just everything else in our world, to push that fear. And that's what I love about these, is there isn't fear in these.
No, that's the beauty of it, yeah.
The sense of self where he's not attached to the world. I had that down, and you had previously commented on that. But the sense of self, yeah, is amazing.
So this was a little near-death experience, and there were some pretty good elements in it. But like you said, it didn't go too far over into like an in-depth. This is kind of, like you said, more or less more of an OBE, I would think.
Yes.
It didn't get into like life reviews and meeting all these beings and all, but they were perceiving things from a different perspective.
Right. And that's some of the questions on the NDERF site. They have a vast list of questions that they ask these experiencers, and they ask if you observed yourself from another standpoint. So that is referencing to the OBE, and not everybody does have those. So that is cool that this one was centered on an OBE.
Absolutely, yeah. Because a lot of them start with an OBE and then kind of go into other parts
More
of the actual
depth into
experience.
an
But this
NDE.
one, yeah, like you said, it's mostly the OBE itself.
But even though, I mean, he felt as though he was dying, and that's something that we see in a lot of these experiencers' cases, is that knowing or sense that they are passing.
Right,
It's
right.
very common in these.
Where you can read firsthand experiences, and these are actual medical, scientific,
Right.
experiences that they've been studying this stuff for 50 plus years, but it's been going on since way back in time. It has a really, really long history.
Way back to Plato, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
And probably even more.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, that was kind of like the first experience I heard that they kind of like described it.
Yeah, and you got to think about, with modern technology, there is that more option to have these experiences because we're
You're
bringing
bringing
people
people
back.
back.
Whereas in the past, people just really just passed away.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear of it as often as you do now.
That's true. That's true. So is it really happening, or is it happening in their heads?
I think it's really happening.
It's gotta be.
My belief is that,
Just go back to the actual example we had earlier. The OBE. You're seeing these things when you're, like you said, eyes closed, laid out, practically dead, on the operating table. And how is it that you can, you're above and you can see your body in a lot of cases? Not all cases, but a lot of times they see the body. You see the nurses, see the doctors, describe it in detail. We call this the blue shoe effect here on our
Yes.
show, in case people don't know, the blue shoe effect. Well, why don't you share that story with them real quick, and then we'll kind of comment on
it was just one of the experiences that I had read. Was she floated out of her body up through the ceiling? Actually, let me back up. She floated out of her body into the room, saw happenings going on in the hallway with her husband and the doctor, and then proceeded to go on up out of the hospital, and looking down at the ceiling of the hospital, the roof, she saw a blue shoe in a gutter up there. So she told the doctors this when she returned, and they were like, no, but ended up they went and checked it out. So she knew that, and they confirmed it. So that's the blue shoe effect, where these are confirmed cases of out of body experiences. The blue shoe effect.
Yeah, I like that. So that's why we had actually deemed it the actual blue shoe effect. And that's the one thing that really keeps me interested in this, knowing that it's more than just stuff going on in a person's head.
Exactly. I mean, how would somebody that's 4 or 5 floors down
Right.
in a building know anything about what's going on top of the building? Or a mile away in some instances. I mean, there's just it's like astral projection, maybe.
Right. They are coming
On
out
this
of the
side of the
body,
realm,
yeah.
not experiencing death. So, yeah, I mean, if you can have those experiences and realize, hey, this is really happening. It's not just made up in our minds.
Absolutely. So that when we speak of the blue shoe effect here on the actual NDE World Podcast, we're referring to the out-of-body part of the experience.
Confirmed out-of-body stuff.
Yeah, where you go out of the body, and there's been stories, as mentioned earlier, that people can be miles and miles away and describing things, and they go back and check it, and it's like, yeah, it's exactly how they described it.
Exactly, yeah.
So.
Also, there's those that when they went through their NDE and are having to return to their body, they look upon their body. One that's coming to my mind is there was a car accident, and she had severed her foot.
Yeah.
It was amputated. So, and she's like, I don't want to go back to that. Don't make me go back to that. So they're seeing and knowing things before they ever return to their body. I mean, so how would you know that if it weren't really happening? That consciousness, that life that we talk about continues on.
Right, right. Well, that's the point, and it kind of reminds me of an account in Dr. Jeffrey's book, The Evidence of the Afterlife. I'm going to kind of paraphrase this. Maybe you can help me out, but something on the lines of there was this guy who had an OBE. He died, medically, clinically, or however you want to say it. And after he came to, he was telling the doctor about his experience, and the doctor told him, "Oh, don't worry about it. It was just, hallucinations, things going on in your head, And after the doctor left, all the nurses, like about 5 or 6 nurses, gathered around the bed, said, "Oh, don't listen to that doctor. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because we hear these stories all the time. We believe what you're saying."
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's
So you've got
actually
the medical
beautiful.
world. A lot of people don't really believe in this stuff, and they don't, they're looking at it from different perspectives
Right.
now.
Yeah, and if you think about the nurses, the things that they hear, these people have got to have some kind of spiritual something about them to have brought them already into this field. To know that they're hearing these stories and can encourage others, to not be afraid, or to, the nurses are a special breed. They really are.
They are beautiful
We've
people,
got 2 of our
beautiful
daughters
souls.
that are in the medical field, so, and they too are beautiful souls. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, looking at the clock, I hate to wrap it up, but we're going to go ahead and keep everything within production time limits. So, any
Yes.
final comments there, Miss Daphne, before we wrap it up?
Just be true, be you.
How about be
Don't
true
believe-
to you?
Be true to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah, just open your mind, awareness.
Be true to you, because you are what you choose to be.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me, too. Okay, guys, we love you all. Peace be with you, and until next time.
Let your light shine.
For more information about the NDE World Podcast, visit NDE.world. That's NDE.world.